Hi, this is Jason Hershey, designated broker and owner of Telus Real Estate Solutions, LLC. Welcome to Landlord 101. This video was recorded during one of our live Landlord 101 classes in fall of 2012 and is part of a series. In this portion of the class, we discuss ongoing relationships with your tenant. We pay special attention to the responsibilities of the landlord according to the Washington State Landlord-Tenant Act. I hope you enjoyed the video and find the information helpful. Please send us your feedback so we can improve the materials.
Okay,
Thank you.
so time limits on responding to tenant issues. So any time that there's an immediate hazardous situation, loss of heat, electricity, or water, hot or cold, you need to respond within 24 hours. This does not mean that you have to have it fixed in 24 hours, but you have to start working on it. It's not always possible to fix it, but you should be trying to fix it within 24 hours. To me, this is just being a good landlord, right? If they don't have heat, that's a major problem for my tenants. I want to get it fixed immediately. You know, you can't wait 2 or 3 days to even start thinking about dealing with it. Okay? So you have 72 hours.
Unless it's beyond your control, like general power outages.
Right,
Right.
yeah, things like that.
Like Sandy.
I would probably call my tenants and just ask them how they're doing.
Sure.
You know, find out, what I can find out to show that I understand the issue. You know.
Right.
And I might even call the power company and say, hey, when's it gonna get fixed? And then write down that I actually called. And, because maybe the power company doesn't know that their neighborhood is out of power.
Sure.
Who knows? Let's see, so you have 3 days loss of provided appliance, or things like plumbing problems. And then anything else that's as soon as reasonably possible. Kind of the key takeaway here is that the idea of you're going to have to respond, in the middle of the night to a clogged toilet is, it's just not real. You don't have to do that. I've done that because I'm a great landlord, but I'm not required to do it. You can always be a better landlord than you're required. Okay. The other thing to know about these is that these are all based on written notice by the tenant. A phone call from your tenant doesn't technically count. I treat it the same way because I think that's a safer way to operate, but it's actually based on written notice. Okay. So if a landlord fails to repair in a timely fashion, again, after that written notice, then the tenant has the right to do one of two things. They can either terminate their tenancy. Hey, the landlord didn't fix the heater for a week, I'm leaving. Then they can leave. And they can break their tenant and get their deposit back, as if they had worked all the way through the lease. It doesn't mean that you can't keep money for something else, although I think you'd have a hard time getting the money under those circumstances if you went to court. So, or the tenant has the right to make the repair and deduct the cost from the rent, which is more common. So, the hot water heater goes out, you've gone to Florida, and so they can't reach you, they get it fixed. They bought the most expensive water heater they could, and so it costs a whole month's rent just for one water heater. You're kind of stuck, right? So, in order to do either one of these things, the tenant must be current in their rent and agreed utilities before exercising those rights. So the tenant who is late on their rent can't say, oh, the hot water heater went out, you didn't respond, so I'm deducting that from the rent. I'm no longer late. That doesn't work. Landlord's right of entry. So you have 2 days notice that you're supposed to give in order to enter the property without the tenant's permission.
That
Now,
includes the grounds
It's entering inside.
inside.
It's kind of an iffy, so it doesn't really say about the grounds, like if there's a fence and it's a house. When it's a house, single family home, I treat the whole property as one. And I don't walk on the property at all without giving them a 2-day notice.
Because that's kind of one of our questions that I'm gonna have to ask the rental housing association, because right now the landscape is all torn up because we had to get the house painted and a lot of things just kind of got chopped out. So we're gonna do some re-landscaping. And the fence needs to be repaired in spots.
I would put that in my
we're
lease.
planning on being there working, and it's gonna be inconvenient if we have to give them written notice every time we wanna show up to work on the fence?
Well, so a couple of
the
things.
yard?
So one, I would, first of all, when you write that first lease, I would actually just put a page on there saying, we're gonna be working on the fence, and so you're giving us permission to come and do this. The other thing is that 2-day notice does not, so what that really means is the tenant can say no to your entering the property if you didn't give them the notice. That doesn't mean you can't come on at all. I can call my tenant right now and say, hey, do you mind if I come up and look at something? And if they say yes, I'm allowed to do it.
Okay.
Well, that's what I thought, it'd be a little bit
Right.
less formal, at least just
No,
give
no, no,
give
yeah,
a
yeah,
phone
yeah.
call and say, hey,
No,
can I come
no,
over
this
now?
is,
You know,
this is more about, hey, I want to come in and inspect the house. You know, and I'm gonna change the batteries, right? And I'm gonna do this a week from Friday. Okay, that's more than enough notice for me to give them, and they can't say no unreasonably. Now, if they have a specific reason and I can make accommodations, I'm supposed to do that. But as a rule, they can't say no. You know, not arbitrarily. If I say I'm gonna be there tomorrow, they can say no, and if I show up and enter the house, then I'm really trespassing.
And did we say that a phone call's enough, it didn't have to be in writing?
It's actually supposed to be in writing. So it is supposed to be in writing. And so there is actually a little form that you can go tack on their door. Again, if you've called them and they've said it's okay, then you don't really have a problem. I would write down that I called and said it was okay. And also the laws don't really deal very well with email. You know, so I think it's an open question whether or not email counts as writing or not writing. So it's really only a problem when the tenant says no. If the tenant says no, I would treat it as a no. And then if it's an issue for me, that's at the point where I'm gonna put a notice on the door.
Don't text and
Yeah,
expect the
exactly.
judge to.
Yeah, texting, you know, that's another one where is that writing or not writing, so,
Judy has a fit.
yeah. Yeah, and so I would not depend on any of those communications. So, you do have to enter at a reasonable time, so it really can't be midnight. You know, you can't say I'm gonna be there at midnight on Friday to do an inspection, you know, that kind of thing. There is no notice required for emergencies or abandonment. So I've got a rental and the power, and it's clear that the power is off and it's freezing outside. I want to go in and do whatever I need to do to make sure the pipes don't freeze. Perfectly reasonable thing to do, right? No notice is required for fire official inspection. So if the fire department says, hey, we're going to go check the smoke alarms in your rental, okay, then the tenant can't say no. Because that's at the convenience of the fire department. Those kinds of things are more typical of multifamily properties. So, but the laws don't make a difference. They don't say in single-family homes versus multifamily homes.
So if you think you have a hoarder, for example, and you can see the boxes piling up in front of the windows, you would just contact the fire department and say, I think I have a fire hazard.
Well,
And ask them
probably
to
what I
fix
would
that.
do is, one, put a notice on the door saying I'm gonna be in here in 2 days,
Uh-huh.
and then physically look, you know, and if they don't let you in, start eviction notice and start evicting them.
Right.
You know, and then, yeah, and then maybe confirm that, because I would assume, I don't know this for sure, but I would expect that the fire department is gonna want a little bit more evidence than your supposition.
I see, uh-huh,
Yeah.
okay,
So, you know, like maybe a picture.
okay. Well,
You know,
I'm thinking
and at
right
that
across
point,
the street,
If you
yeah.
had that problem, I'd also probably be contacting social services and
Right,
trying to get somebody some help,
right,
you know, that type of thing. Okay. So again, tenant cannot unreasonably withhold consent, and then you're allowed to evict them. So do inspect your properties regularly. Recommend at least yearly or twice a year. The fallback, you know, spring forward fallback is a great way to remember it. Check for needed repairs. Check who the tenants are. So if you've got a place and you've got one tenant, one female tenant, and you see that there's some men's shoes underneath the bed, then you gotta wonder how many people are actually living in the house. You know, that type of thing. You know, and so you're checking, and you know, and I've got a tenant who their kids are constantly moving in and out. Actually, I've got a couple of tenants that do that now. And so I kind of need to keep track of whether or not their adult kids are there. I want to know, you know. And if you do find somebody, then you're going to say, hey, I need to get an application from them. They're not allowed to be here, you know. And if they're going to live here, I need an application, and I'm going to charge a credit check fee. And I'm going to, you know, and you're in violation of your lease now. And we'll talk about how to notify them about violations. So, so for your ongoing relationships, so practice the golden rule. Just treat people the way that you want to be treated, you know, and you're usually going to be pretty good. Okay, keeping good tenants reduces your expenses. Again, I've had tenants in place for 6 or 7 years. So there's been a lot of money I've made because I haven't had to paint, replace carpets, advertise, I haven't had it empty, all kinds of expenses I haven't had to have just because I have good tenants. And I have good tenants and I've kept them because I'm a pretty good landlord. I think I'm a better than average, I'm a nicer than average landlord. I respond to problems quickly, and it doesn't take a lot to be better than average. You know, I respond to problems quickly. There you go. That's, you know, and I'm understanding, you know, and I'm also clear about expectations. I tell them what I expect. I tell them what they can expect, and lo and behold, they learn that they can expect those things from me. It's very odd for tenants when they realize that if they call me and say because I always tell my tenants, hey, if you're going to be late with the rent, tell me ahead of time. And it's my pet peeve when they don't, you know, and they're amazed when they say. So I had a tenant who said, you know, I'm having problems financially, you know, I'm struggling with my budget. I said, you know what would really help me is if I could pay my rent, you know, like on the 1st and the 15th, you know, every 2 weeks. And I said, you know what, you've been in place for a long time, we'll do that. We're gonna change your lease. And so I wrote them a letter, you know, and I signed it and just saying, you know, all the other terms of your lease are the same, but your rent's now payable 1/2 on the 1st, 1/2 on the 15th. But I also said, however, because of this, there is no I forget what the term was in the lease, you know, that no forgiveness of time. It's due on the 1st and 15th, not due on the 1st and 5 days later, you know, you can pay it. No longer that, it's gonna be late the day after. And I sent that to them, I said, here, sign a copy, send it back to me, and they were extremely happy. And they started sending me 2 checks on the 1st. You know, that was good, you know, it was better. It still wasn't perfect, but it was still pretty good. You know, and it's just because I was willing to be accommodating, and I was willing to be accommodating for a good tenant. So.
This is Jason again. I hope you enjoyed this video from our Landlord 101 series and found it educational. Be sure to check out our other videos and provide your feedback. Please email or call if you need any help with your commercial or investment real estate needs. Again, thank you.